Kelly Bensimon. Welcome to Money Rehab.
Thank you. I love that, Money Rehab. That's such a great title.
Thank you. I think we're going to keep it. How did you start in real estate?
So I actually stumbled upon real estate. Unfortunately, my mom fell ill and wanted me to help sell our family properties. And my father's older, so I oversaw that, quickly got my license, and wasn't really thinking that, this is like just when $1 Million Listing had gone on, and I was, just finished. I just retired from Housewives, getting my MBA, and I was just like, and I just was kind of stumbled into this because I had to do it. And so out of something that's so traumatic came something like so incredible. I mean, who would have known that, she's asking me to do something to like preserve our family, and all of a sudden I'm like, pulling in 110 million on my own.
I was just about to ask that. I was waiting to like throw down that number because you were like, I just stumbled into this little thing. Casual $110 million in sales later.
Last year. Yeah, just last year.
In 1 year.
1 year. Mm-hmm. Started with the number one deal. Started with the number one deal of 2021. So we're in COVID. No one's in New York City. And I sold 150 Charles. The penthouse at 150 Charles for $42 million, all cash.
Nicely done.
That was really nicely done, actually. Yeah. It was so odd, too, because when they talk about real estate, they're like, you have to really be a hustler and do all this stuff. Well, you have to work smart. So a friend of mine happened to be looking for a $30 million apartment for his son.
Does that guy want to adopt another child? Someone who wants to buy a $30 million apartment? Who is that kind of person?
I mean, they're just New York investors. I mean, I think a lot of New York guys knew what was going to happen. They forecasted that there was going to be something happening. They just bought everything up
because it was on the down. Mm-hmm. So buy low, sell high. And so when
buy low, sell high, that's your business.
That's right. But it works in real estate too. It's really hard to time the market. It's hard to figure out the trends of real estate. It's so city specific. What do you think is going on with the real estate market now? If you could give us a pulse check.
Well, so, stock market's your business. Real estate market's my business. Stock market, as we know, has been pretty solid, in the past couple of weeks. But, we had, 14 contracts over 4 million last week. And 4 of those were over 20 million. So, and it was Thanksgiving. So, that's really interesting. I mean, there's a lot of big cash buyers out there. So when people ask me about my business, they're like, well, people aren't selling anything, I don't want to sell. I'm like, well, you can sell. It's like any market. It's like if if the person wants what you have, they're going to pay the price for it. So it doesn't matter what the state of the stock market is. It's like people want what they can't have. And the good news about my business is I have a lot of great properties that most people can't have.
Well, it sounds like it's really a relationship business.
Completely. But this isn't something that I just fell into. People are like, oh, she got her license and all of a sudden she's doing 42 million. This is not how that works. I mean, I went to Columbia. I have my MBA. I had great mentors along the way. I started L Accessories, started Gotham Magazine. Like I'm used to working with, investors. I'm used to working with advertisers. I'm used to like that narrative. And so I'm also used to asking for help. And I think that's a big part of the real estate business. Hey, I'm starting out. What's your advice? Do you know someone that's interested in needs to sell anything or buy something? I think that's a really big deal. People don't want to ask for help, especially now. People are like, I know everything about everything. It's like, well, I don't.
I certainly don't. I ask for help all the time.
Yeah. See, there you go.
There's always more to learn, no matter what. So for you, is that part of the working smarter, not harder?
Absolutely. I think that when you're in business, people think that they talk about like leaps of faith and be humble and all these things. That is just a total, those are all lies.
You can swear here.
That's okay. I swear. But I just think that they're total lies. And it's like people that are successful in any business, whether they're the head of a bank, they're great at sales, they're strategic, they're thoughtful, and they are specific about what they're doing. If you're just like all over the place, just like, yay, here I am, woo, people aren't going to take you seriously. I think one reason that real estate really resonates with my clients is because I know everything about lifestyle. I started a magazine based on lifestyle. So it's like I already put the work in. And so I can kind of sit back and say, okay, this is the strategic opportunity for this apartment. This apartment needs staging. This apartment needs press. This apartment needs, a party. This apartment, whatever it is, everything needs a little love in some kind of way. And, you just can't they always say like put lipstick on a pig. Like we don't do that. I like make it movie magic.
I did bid on a place in LA and I lost it. So I need help. And I mean, we've seen these crazy bidding wars.
Right.
It was like, when interest rates were nothing, lines around the block for open houses, like they were giving something away. I mean, that's
for rentals and for sales.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of changed as interest rates have gone up. But what would your advice be for winning a bidding war?
To have your financials in order. Just be ready to go. Because, for example, my daughter is looking at an apartment and they were like, okay, it hasn't even been finished yet. It's like the apartment is in construction and they're like, okay, you need to Zelle the money, first month's rent, earnest deposit, all this money, like Zelle it. No checks, Zelle, like right away. So you have to be really ready to go. You can't be like, oh, wait, hold on, let me just get myself together, because there is that person that has their money ready to go.
And that's when you lose something. Is sending
and also negotiating the deal. Like some people are like, oh, I'm going to take the 3 months rent at the beginning. I'm going to take the 3 months in the back. Some people get really, really caught up in the art of the deal, and they forget that there's a transaction needs to be made. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. And if you wheel and deal too much, you might lose it.
Well, I mean, there's someone else again that's ready to go. And you think you're being so like profound with your like wheeling and dealing. But then the other person's like, thanks very much, ching, like, my Zelle went through, goodbye.
I mean, I don't hate renting. I talk about this a lot too, because if you are taking out a jumbo mortgage and you're paying money for every month,
right,
most of that's going to interest in the beginning, right? And that's money you're not getting back. So when people say you're throwing money away by renting, you don't get that interest back. You don't get a bunch of other stuff back. You don't get closing costs back.
Right.
And so do you think we should bring sexy back to renting?
I mean, there are so many. I mean, the rental market in New York is just insane right now. And, I think there's a lot of fear associated with buying properties because there's fear with the unknown. And it's not like, because of the volatility of the stock market, people are like, okay, that's a forecasting of what's going to happen in the real estate market. But again, like, I live in this beautiful building. I just sold. It's approximately, because it's a co-op, so it's approximately 1,800 square feet. One apartment for $2.9 million, and then I sold another one a couple of months later for $4.1. So I basically raised the price of the building. Obviously, the other apartment was a different apartment with a different narrative. But do you see what I'm saying? Like, you can really make really good money, or you can, if you're living in a great home, like for example, like I represent this insane home on the Upper West Side, 26 West 87th Street, where Billie Holiday, she lived. And it's this phenomenal townhouse. It's been completely renovated for 13.7. And, that's a place like if you bought that home, I mean, you could really later on do whatever you want and really make a lot of money. So it just depends.
If you're not paying a lot of mortgage, because you can, if you take
depends.
that big lump sum, like if somebody saved up $200,000 to buy $1 million place, but they only have $200,000 and they put all that money into their house, they're kind of house poor, and then they can't use that money to put in the market and make more money potentially. So that opportunity cost of the big lump sum sometimes doesn't make sense for people.
Well, we have like different buckets. So we've got the Midwestern bucket where they're putting money into under their mattresses. And then we have the real estate bucket, and then we have the stock market bucket. So we have like different people trying to figure out their finances in different kinds of ways. And it's just really like what works for you. Some people are just like, I'm just going to put that cash under my mattress, and
which we don't recommend.
No, we don't.
The record.
But some people are just like, I'm just going to save it for a rainy day because cash is king. So
queen,
king and queen. So you may not recommend it, but at the end of the day, sometimes it's good because you know, if during COVID, when you had a lot of cash, you could really buy anything you wanted. So there's just three different kinds of buckets, and it's just really, you know, what you want to do and how you want to do it. At the end of the day, whether it's real estate, stock market, or your mattress, you know, the number one priority for me in anything that I do with anyone is I tell them, like, your family, they're your legacy. So you need to give them shelter.
I like it.
Like, that's crucial. And, you know, food, water, and shelter. Those are the things that people need. And so if you can you can set up your family with shelter, your son, daughter, mother, you know, whomever it is, I mean, that's just a major, 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 you know, value add to their future.
Everybody needs shelter from the storm. Can we talk about a type of storm? The storm that is the Housewives. I think there are a lot of people listening who will know you from the Housewives.
Yes.
Do you think there's anything that you learned doing that show that helps you with real estate?
I mean, I am so grateful for Housewives and for Bravo because they gave me this massive, they basically took my name that was like a small name in New York City and like blew me out of the water. So wherever I go, Kelly Bensimon, it's not Kelly Bensimon, it's not Kelly Bensimon. And so I bring all of those optics to what I do in real estate.
So looking back, this is not something you regret doing. You're happy
Not at
about being
all.
on the show.
No.
It paid dividends.
Yeah.
Many, many.
I mean,
it
I
sounds
think
like.
that like when everyone ever asked me about the regrets, like the only regret that I ever had was not showing like my real life, because it wasn't fair to single women, you know, to not show them like how I was making money on my own. Like they just thought that I was running around, you know, cartwheels, like, you know, like chewing gum, having fun, which is something that I do all the time. But I also know how to make money and provide for my family.
And they didn't show enough of that, you don't think?
Well, they didn't want to, because they were like, she's a supermodel. And you have to remember too, like back when I was on television in the Ice Age, it was like 2009, you know, being a single parent was definitely not sexy. That was like almost taboo. Being able to provide for your family was like an anomaly. And, you know, just talking about being single was something that's like, oh, you're not with a man. It's like you're not a unit. Right. You're not complete. You're not like a traditional family. So there were all of these interesting, you know, layers of things I didn't think, you know, people didn't want to necessarily hear about. And now people are like, how did you do it? How did you do it? I'm like, I don't know. You ask my kids. They did it. I didn't do it. I just like pushed them.
So we heard rumors that Bravo wants you to come back for Housewives of New York Legends show. Are
Yeah.
you going to do that?
I mean, you know, I'm definitely thinking about it. You know, it's like I love the brand, and I love the women. So I'm definitely thinking about it.
So, but leaning more toward yes?
We'll see.
It sounds like it.
We'll see. We'll see what happens. You never say never. But you know, everything has to align.
It sounds like it. I mean, Bethany has said that there's always a number to go back to the Housewives.
Right.
Do you have a number?
Well, it's work at the end of the day. Do you know what I mean? It is a job. It's not like not work, you know? So there's always a number for everything, you know?
I agree. It's not a charity.
Right.
Okay. So what do you think, like a ballpark?
It's hard to say because, you know, it's like relative. Like you have to like factor in taxes. I'm just kidding.
Taxes are not fun to factor in, but I'm glad you are. Especially New York taxes.
Especially New York taxes.
Okay,
and California taxes.
So what would your post-tax number be?
I don't know.
Like
really.
roughly
I don't
$1 million.
know. I don't know.
2 million,
I don't
10
know.
million,
I don't know.
50 million. Okay, so I'm going to give you $50 million. Would you go back to the Housewives?
50 million, I'd probably go back to the Housewives.
10 million. We're doing an auction.
Why
We're
is it 50 to 10? That's terrible. It's like it's usually like 50 to like 47 or like
we're not buying a house here, sister. I mean, I'm just trying to find the ballpark. I'm trying to find the range. Like,
everyone's always
what neighborhood are we in?
No, but everyone's like when they ask me, I'm like, oh no, I don't really like that number. They're like, why? I'm like, what do you mean like 4975? They're like, no, what? I'm like, you should change the price of that shoe. I don't like that.
But it sounds like the salary isn't really where you're making the money, but you get paid by episode?
It depends on your deal.
Okay.
It depends on your deal.
So there's not a standard thing. No. Everybody gets.
Yeah. I don't really know what other people are getting. I don't really like a lot of housewives. They like try to commiserate. I'm like, no. I'm good.
You don't like talking about it? I like financial transparency.
I do too, but I think that you have to be careful, especially on a show like that. It's different like when you're working together, but when you're like on a show that's being filmed under like a microscope on HGTV, I think it's different when you're talking because there's that constant like the level of competition just gets really, really like high because of like how much the person's getting paid versus like what's at stake emotionally. Do you know what I mean?
Got it. I'm sure Bravo doesn't want everybody talking about it because there'll probably be like some collective bargaining agreement where everybody goes up and tries to get
again,
more money.
like you don't want to be like, you don't want to have, I mean, you wouldn't want to be on a show. You wouldn't want to produce a show where you have like 4 people already arguing about knowing how much the other person is making.
I mean,
like,
there's a balance, right? Because I think, especially for women negotiating, this will be a real estate analogy for you. In order to price your house, you need to know the comp of the area.
Obviously.
Okay, so the same thing works for like salaries, right? If you don't know the comp, like how are you pricing yourself? You're shooting in the dark.
Right. That's a good point. But I think that when you're seeing people that are getting like $1 million versus like other people that are getting like 10,000, I think that such a like it's not a level playing field, and so then people get like are just at the onset like ferocious. And they don't want that. They want people to be genuine, and they want to like, it's HGTV. You want to see like authentic moments.
Yeah, although I would argue with Housewives, there's been so much financial turmoil for so many of these women that maybe talking about it would be helpful. Because the number of bankruptcies, the number of financial scandals.
Well, I mean, if you're talking about actual finance, if you're saying to like so-and-so, like if you went on and were like, hi, this is what you need to do. Or if someone was in a situation with bankruptcy, if you were there to be like, well, I can help you navigate that. I think that's different than like trying to get people to, on the onset, to be like, you're making 10,000, I'm making $1 million. Like I'm better than you are, kind of thing.
Should I bust into the Housewives?
Because you don't know you don't know like
women?
Who's going to be the breakout star. Like you don't know. Just because you're making X amount of dollars doesn't mean that you're not going to be that you're going to be the breakout star versus the other one. You don't know that. It depends on like the narrative. It depends on like what they're doing.
So I'll be honest. I haven't watched any Housewives franchise at all.
You should be on it. You should be on it.
I would. Okay, which one should I be on? There's a Potomac. That's not a joke.
There's Dubai, there's Potomac, they're all over. There's Miami.
I'm coming on. I'm going to help these women.
There's Beverly Hills.
They can tell me. We don't have to put it on. They can tell me how much they're making. I can look at the books because it seems like there's always a headline about a financial scandal on the Housewives. There's Jen Shaw. There's Erica Jane. Teresa. I don't know how to say her last name.
Giudice.
Giudice. Why do you think so many housewives get into financial trouble?
Because I think they live above their means. I think they get excited, and I think that they forget why the fans want to hear from them. They want to hear their story, and then all of a sudden they're like, "I'm wearing Louis Vuitton. I'm in a G-Wagon. Like I'm killing it. Look at me. I'm famous." And then all of a sudden, the camera stopped rolling. It's like in any business. It's like an entertainment business, like music, modeling, acting. You see all these people like doing so well, and then all of a sudden they stop doing well, and the money stops coming in, and all of a sudden it's like dun dun dun. Then life gets real. So, I think you'd be great. I think they would. No, I think it'd be great to just have you just like in general, just like telling women like, how to take care of themselves. And
I'm in. Sign me up. Because it's not even living within your means, it's living below your means, which is not fun and sexy, but it builds long-term wealth. Just saying.
Right.
With Erica Jane, she's been having all this trouble with her ex-husband. It came out that she didn't have a prenup or something like that. What do you think about prenups?
It depends on the situation. I think that some situations you should have a prenup. I mean, I didn't have a prenup with my ex-husband.
Was that a mistake?
No. because I mean, I had money coming in, he had money coming in, and I just genuinely wanted to, move forward. And money wasn't the impetus. Like, I didn't marry him for money, and I wasn't divorcing him for money. I was divorcing him for freedom and to raise my kids and to give them the greatest life ever. And I just didn't feel like, being with him was doing that. So I don't think of it like that. Like, some women are like, oh my God, money, which is great because if, at the end of the day, you have to like provide for yourself.
Or you could flip the script, right? And say like, this is an empowering thing. I'm a woman. I make my own money. Like, I need to protect my own stuff.
Right.
By the way.
Well, there's two sides of it. I mean, I definitely raised my kids with good values and a sense of self, and they've always worked. And my daughters worked through college, and they've done everything from like babysat to do like bartending, waitressing. Like, they've done it all. There's nothing. They need to when you're young, you need to work. It's a good ethic. It's good for to raise them like that. But I don't think that you should be, I mean, I personally, I don't know. I mean, it's like, I don't judge people, but I don't marry for the ring. Like, I, marry because I married my ex-husband because I thought he was an amazing human. Like, if I thought that was marrying for the ring, like, I would have gotten a bigger ring.
I think some people think of it that, you if you get divorced or if something happens, it's like having insurance. You don't want the state to decide. You just want to be in control of what happens. You can throw it in the fire or whatever. So, so would you get married again?
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, if we're talking about like your inheritance, like your family's inheritance or something like that, like, I don't think that that's fair for an ex to get that. That's not fair. But when you bring something to a relationship and you are in the relationship and you're going in under contract, it's a transaction at the end of the day. It's a legal contract. I'm going to marry you, and this is what we're going to do, and here's the terms of the contract. I mean, that's what it is. So if you don't like the terms of the contract, you probably shouldn't have gotten involved in the first place.
So you're out dating.
Yes.
How's that going?
It's going well.
Are you on the apps?
No. I have a boyfriend. I have a boyfriend. I have a really serious boyfriend.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
But when you were dating, did men feel intimidated by you, do you think?
No.
By your net worth?
No, they're always trying to like take care of me. Like, men are always like, oh, let me take care of you. Like, it made me feel very insecure. Very insecure.
Because you want to take care of yourself.
Right. Because it's like, here I have these two girls, and what am I going to do? Just be like, oh, okay. Like, let me just, hop into your arms with two kids. I was like, ready, set, here we come. I felt a big responsibility, and people, guys that I were dating were very, very assertive about, taking care of me. It made me very insecure. Not to say that I don't appreciate it, but I felt like kind of like it was like, okay, this is the amount of money you're going to get every month. And I was like, what? Wow.
Or you didn't want to show that kind of paradigm to your kids too?
Right. I just didn't, I mean, the whole thing just really, didn't agree with me.
So with your man.
But some people really like that. Like, some people are like, great. Like, at least I know what I'm getting. Like, I mean, again, like, we're talking, honestly, like, some women just really like that. That was just never, like, I wasn't raised like that. If I told my father, by the way, I'm marrying this guy and he's going to give me X amount of dollars per month, my father would be like, I spent all this money on all this great education for you to think like that.
You went to Columbia to
he would not be, he passed and he would not be happy. He would be like, no. He would want me to like have a partner and to build. He would want
together.
He would want me to build. I think that there has to like, women have to be able to be doing something that really like ignites them and makes them feel whole, so that the relationship what started off is this, it ignited for a reason, because for whatever reason, and then all of a sudden, you go into this transaction, you sign this piece of paper, this, stone goes on your finger, and all of a sudden the dynamics change. And I think that people get lost. And I think it's not about the money. I think it's about they just get personally and emotionally lost.
Yeah, I mean, transparency.
So that's how I see it. I mean, I know we were talking about money for you, but I mean, I think of it more in like an emotional way where, I have a lot of empathy for both women and men who are get lost in relationships. I don't want to be that, and I don't want someone to be in a relationship with me that feels like that.
No, but I mean, like, having financial transparency is like, helpful if, God forbid, something happens to a spouse or they need to know where the accounts are. A lot of women don't even know that information or have that insight, or even in the beginning, like there's a lot of financial infidelity where somebody kind of talks a big game or has a bunch of debt that they don't disclose or owes somebody a bunch of money. And so that can come up in sort of nefarious ways.
Yeah, nefarious is a great word.
Thank you.
If
it's not discussed.
Exactly. It means like what it sounds like. I totally agree. Again, for someone like me, I just, I've waited so long to be with the right person. And, I've met a lot of really great guys, but they're definitely not the right person for me. And, I just want to have respect for my partner, and I want him to, do everything that he wants to do, and I want to do the same.
And do you believe in like a co-creation, like with talking about work or having him help you with deals
absolutely.
Or connections or stuff like that?
Of course. And I think that's really important too. It's like
support each other.
You have to be a supportive spouse. I mean, you can't just be like, just come over here and let me just, like Shel Silverstein, where like all of a sudden the giving tree is like this little stump. Like, that's not fair.
Yeah, it's give and take. So what?
Yeah, absolutely.
And
I think it's important to listen. I mean, we're talking about finances, but I think that like you and I are like on opposite sides of this, but where there is some kind of common line where it's just like transparency and like being healthful in your relationship, and whether that's with financial transparency, emotional transparency. But if you're going to get into a relationship, there should be the genuine love should be so strong, and there's nothing wrong with being in love. There's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to get married for money. You don't have to get married because you need to like move into an apartment. You don't have to do any of those things.
Well, I definitely don't advocate that.
No, I'm not saying that you do, but my point is like you don't have to like. There's like a happy medium to all of this stuff, and I think that it's like. It's so nice to have someone like you as a role model who can talk to women about finances, because it's something that's daunting. And, I've had to deal with it all my life. I don't talk about it. I don't I know a lot, like a lot of the housewives are like, I made all this money, and they're throwing it around. And all these women like are watching, and they're just kind of like, wait, what? What about me? Like, I can't even pay bills. And you know what I mean? So it's hard. It's hard to see all of that. So I just want, women to be excited about what they have and who they are, and, to like recognize that there are checks and balances and the money that goes in, the money that goes out, and just to try to be mindful of what they're doing.
Yeah, I think how people are in different parts of their relationship, if they're avoidant or whatever, it just transfers over to how you approach money too.
Right.
But it sounds like you're saying to viewers or watchers of the Housewives, maybe don't emulate what you see. Don't be as frivolous potentially as what you're watching on the show.
Right. But I mean, at the same time, that you shouldn't be like, oh, I need to, I need to be rich in order to be, to feel good, because it's, there's so many more things in, to be happy. And, I've had so many iterations of my life, and I've been through so much, so many like peaks and valleys, and I still to this day believe in love and believe in like taking care of myself and taking care of other people.
Yeah. I believe in stocks, not stuff.
See?
We end the show
That's what I'm saying. I believe in like stuff, but not just too much stuff.
With a piece of financial...
And stocks, obviously.
Yes.
And stocks.
You can have both.
I like IRAs is what I like.
I do too.
I'm like, put it away. Don't touch it.
Perfect. What's one financial piece of advice you would give your former self?
It's just what I tell myself today. It's just like, there's a little for me, a little for Uncle Sam, and then a little to put away. And like
future Kelly.
I always do that.
That's a good way to think about it.
Yeah. And I'm always like thinking of my girls, like what we're gonna do for them, and just to be balanced about it. Because what you were saying before about to live under your means, some people just can't do that. Some people just, it's like, my father came from absolutely nothing, and he gave us so much education, integrity, and it was a healthy mindset. And he lived way above his means, way above his means. But he created, like, we were his legacy. So whatever he spent was, we were his stocks. So just kind of like a different kind of
way of investing.
Invest in family and friends. And, then later on in life, when you can put that money away, or even if when you're younger, if you put away $5 when you're young, like those are kind of like real, like those are really good, like those are good advice tips. Like try to put $20 away every month, $30, $40. Start to like that, putting money away more and more and more. That's really when you start accumulating wealth.
Yeah. And being rich in all aspects of the word.
Love you.
I love you back.
You're great.
You're great. Thank you so much for
thank
hanging.
you.